Boy, in recent years, they've been playing that song a lot because Wake Forest football has really taken a dramatic rise under Dave Clawson. We're joined by their fine play-by-play voice, Stan Cotten, is on the right-hand side of that screen. Stan, how you doing?
Hey, George. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Thanks for the
Doing good.
invite, as always, and look forward to talking a little football here today.
So tell me what life after Sam Hartman is like at Wake.
Well, short sample size right now, just one game, but I think Mitch Griffiths is really kind of the perfect guy. I mean, if you're going to draw this up and lose a guy like Hartman that's been around for 5 years, I think Mitch Griffiths would probably fit the bill. I mean, he's a guy that's he's played a little bit, but he's been around the program, for 3 years. I mean, it's not like he just walked in the door, last week. And he's grown up around football. His father was his high school coach, and so he learned from an early age, what it was like to really prepare, to play a football game. He was watching film and all those types of things as a young man under his dad's leadership. And so when he got to Winston-Salem under Dave Clawson and offensive coordinator Warren Ruggiero, it wasn't, oh, okay, it takes this to, to be a successful quarterback. He knew some of those really good habits already, and certainly he has refined those over his time here. So if, and I'll underscore if Wake Forest has any issues, this year, George, I don't think it's going to be because of quarterback. Mitch Griffiths is a guy that, understands, I think, really what Dave Clawson wants of him. Started a year ago when Sam Hartman had to miss the first game against VMI back in 2022 with a blood clot issue, and Mitch came in against VMI, played very well, threw 3 touchdowns, did so last week. Wasn't perfect last week, but who is really on any given, I guess we played on Thursday night last week, but I just think Mitch will be fine. I think the Wake Forest fan base feels really good about him, and they should for a lot of the reasons that I've mentioned.
Under Hartman, they ran, I don't know if you'd call it a play necessarily, but you know where I'm going, this mesh point thing that none of us really had ever seen before. Are they still running it?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see that Saturday against Vandy here in Winston-Salem, no question. It's just it's not all they do, but it's part of what they do, and it's a slow mesh where that, back when you and I were younger, George, and the triple option, those option things happen pretty quickly, right? But this is a real slow read by the quarterback through, and he may pull it and throw it. He may hand it off and push the running back. He may pull it and pitch it. He might pull it and keep it. But the mesh takes an awful long time to develop. So a lot of what Wake Forest will do, the decision will be made by Mitch Griffiths after the snap of the ball. It's post snap. Now, some of it isn't, but a lot of it is. And so, yeah, pretty much what Vandy fans saw last year down in Nashville, they'll see this Saturday in Winston.
Talk to me a little bit about Dave Clawson. We knew him a little bit from his time at the University of Tennessee. He certainly, from the day he has gotten there, where that program is now is light years different. Where is it? What is it that he has done that has created all this success?
And here's a bet you'll win with your buddies, George. Who's got the second longest bowl streak in the ACC behind Clemson? It's Wake Forest. The Deacs have been to 7 consecutive bowl games. That's a school record, and again, right now the second longest in the league. And I think you really have to give the lion's share of the credit to Dave Clawson and what he's built here. I think, George, he's the perfect guy at the perfect time at the perfect place. I mean, he's got an academic background. He was a student athlete at Williams College. He's been to other, he's at Richmond as a head coach before he got to Wake. And so I think maybe more than a lot of coaches might be. He understands the kind of player that he's got to recruit to number one, get in school at Wake. Secondly, to stay in school at Wake. And then you got to find the guy that can do both of those things, but also play high quality football. And he's found that the way to do that. He's kind of identified the player that can do all three of those things. So again, I just think it doesn't take you very long when you're around Dave Clawson to understand he's the smartest guy in the room. He might, the Deacs might get outplayed on Saturday, whatever. I don't think they'll get outcoached anyway, quite honestly. But I mean, he'll have his team prepared. And, as my buddy, the late Skip Prosser used to say, football's not round. It doesn't bounce straight. So who knows what'll happen on Saturday. But again, I just think Wake will be prepared because of the guy at the top.
Stan, help me if I'm wrong on this, but I think I read yesterday that it was within like a couple hundred seats of a sellout.
Yeah.
And that's a change from years gone by. That's got to be music to everybody's ears.
Yeah, the opener last week on Thursday night against Elon was a sellout. And, I think the fans in Winston-Salem have bought into this, not just the football program, quite honestly, to everything. Baseball had an unbelievable year this past year, spent about half the time as the number one team in the country. Crowds were record. The fans are coming back to the Joel Coliseum to watch basketball. But I just think right now there's a really good mix. John Curry at the top as the athletic director has done a terrific job since he got here, replacing longtime AD Ron Wellman. And so it's just a good mix right now, George, with, the administration, the coaching staff on board, the types of student athletes that are coming to Winston-Salem and Wake Forest. So, again, just good time to be a Deke in 2023.
Yeah, no kidding. Congratulations on that. Kelly, say hello to Stan Cotten.
Stan, how you doing, man?
Hey, Kelly, what's up?
I'm good, man. Hey, George, that's just a run-pass option they're doing. It might be a little slower, but it's a run-pass option. Sometimes they read defensive linemen, sometimes they read linebackers, sometimes they read secondary folks. So that's what he's trying to, when he sticks that ball in there and he slow reads it, he's got one dude that he's looking for, and if he bites, that's hard on linebackers now. So that was some good stuff. And Sam Hartman did a good job.
And let me throw this in too. It can be tough on the offensive linemen too, Stan, and I'm sure you can speak to that. You've got to have some stout offensive linemen to give your quarterback enough time to sit back there.
Yeah, it's a different deal. I mean, if you look back at Coach Clawson's tenure, not only here but Bowling Green, Richmond, Fordham, the places where he was the head coach before he got to Winston-Salem, took about 3 years. It was about that third year. If you look at all of them, it's kind of uncanny how all of a sudden things began to trend upward. That was the case here after a couple of really lean years, but then it started to click. And you're right. It takes a lot of moving parts for this offense to click, with the offensive linemen, the backs, the receivers, all those things. So again, it looks a little unique. It is unique. Probably takes opponents a little bit extra time during practice week to prepare. So, we'll see how it all shakes out on Saturday.
So with Sam Hartman obviously going, y'all talked about that earlier, but with him going, he obviously used the transfer portal. And we talked yesterday about Dabo Swinney not wanting to get into the transfer portal. He's like, I'm not going to use that. And then the other night we saw a team that does use the transfer portal. Duke looked like the best Duke team I've ever seen. So what does Coach Clawson think about? I don't know if you can talk about that, but what do you think about the transfer portal? It's going nowhere, but it looks like that teams like a Colorado or Duke or Wake Forest, I mean, you can bring guys in and, it's just totally turning over a roster every year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to go program by program, right? I mean, if you need it, it's there, and there are plenty of examples of folks who have used it to the benefit of their program. I don't think that's the way Dave Clawson wants to build his team here. Obviously, the Deacs have a few of those portal kids coming in, but not a whole lot. I still think Dave Clawson wants to build his program on his high school recruits, and a few portal guys on top of that. Dave Clawson has said since day one, he continues to say it, that at Wake Forest, it's kind of a developmental program. I mean, Wake's not going to get 5-star recruits and not a lot of 4-stars either. And so what his staff wants to do is get those 2s and 3s in here, work with them, coach them up, love them hard, have them stay here for 4, 5, 6, who knows these days, 7 years, but have them learn what it means to be a Wake player and fall in love with the town, fall in love with the institution, stay here, get your degree. And if you do that, if you stay around, not only will you be successful, you'll have that Wake Forest degree. And so that's kind of the way I think Dave Clawson wants to build his team here. And so far so good. The portal deal, who knows what's going to be happening in 5, 6 years, but there are certainly teams without question who are going to, turn that roster over every year. Maybe not as many football teams as basketball teams. Obviously, a lot easier to do it in basketball when you only have to have a handful, not 15 or 20 sometimes.
So Coach Clawson has been there for quite a while, because nowadays you see instant gratification, and some of these coaches take these jobs, and it's just a stepping stone to get to another job. But it seems like Coach Clawson likes Wake Forest. He's had some success there. I mean, I saw where since 2021, y'all have won 20 games. So, he's done really well. This is not, obviously he's been there for a while. He wants to stay there and keep growing this.
Yeah, it's his 10th year here, and as we talked about earlier, he fits. It's a institution where just his background makes him the perfect guy to be here. And Wake's really made a unbelievable commitment, not just to football, but the facilities here in Winston-Salem now are. I've been here pushing 30 years, not quite, and I can remember all the things that Wake Forest didn't have. But I just, the combination now that Dave Clawson can sit down with a young man, his mom and dad, and say, look, here are the kind of facilities you're going to have. You're going to get that Wake degree that I mentioned earlier if you stay around. You're going to play high-level football. He's got a pretty good basket of goodies to share. And he's had success. People love him around here. Why would you want to leave? He's making good money. And so for a lot of different reasons, the first 10 years have gone by quickly. We'll see how college football changes, how the landscape differs down the road. And, who knows what these coaches are going to be confronting, and if they'll, stay coaching as long as they might have in the old days when they didn't have to face some of this stuff. I don't know. But again, certainly the Wake Forest fans are hoping Dave Clawson's not looking anywhere down the road, that he's just looking right now what he's got, the commitment that the university has made, and that, he's turned that into a lot more wins than losses on the football field here.
Got you. So last week you played Elon. It's hard to kind of tell what's going on. You guys are pretty good, but what's the biggest difference from last year's team to this year's team, you think? Just with one litmus test of Elon, I don't know if you can tell that, but what is the biggest difference offensively, defensively?
Offensively, obviously, it's quarterback. You've got a guy that in a lot of ways will look a whole lot like Sam Hartman, I think, because he runs the same type of offense, a little bit different arm slot for him. Mitch looks a little to me like a second baseman with a ground ball turning it, throw to second, kind of a little 3/4 arm slot there. He's not your traditional over the top type of guy, more like Sam Hartman was, but just a different leader, a different voice. I almost said in the huddle. The Deeks don't really huddle, but up and down the sideline and all those types of things. A different leader in the locker room. Wake's really deep at receiver like they were a year ago. If Wake really needs to establish a running game a little bit, I know Vanderbilt kind of feels the same way about it being a little more balanced than it has been its first couple of games. Wake would certainly like to be more balanced than it was last week. I think defensively, Wake's better than a year ago. They've got a great safety room. They got a lot of players that can play in the secondary. They got a lot of linebackers that can play good football. So Their team speed's a little better on that side of the ball, not as deep across that front as they have been. Their talent's pretty good, but they need to stay healthy there if they can. Special teams looked really good last week, both punting and kicking and kicking off even, and also in the return game. So I don't think there are any really glaring differences over a year ago, other than Wake's probably a little better on defense and not quite as balanced as they want to be on offense.
Gotcha. So my last thing, what do you think the keys to the game will be this weekend against Vanderbilt? I mean, we got 2 undefeated teams coming in. I know it's early in the season, but it's a big game for both teams.
Yeah, it is. Wake really has looked, maybe not Coach Clawson so much, at least not publicly, at the first 4 games. Like, golly, if you want to go back to a bowl game, got to put some of that hay in the barn the first month and a half. But I really think on Saturday, I think the team that's able to establish a better run game than it has in Wake's first game and in Vandy's case the first 2 weeks, the team that can maybe establish a running game will have a really good chance, and maybe being there at the end, having a really good chance to win the game. It's probably not that simple, but I think both teams can throw the ball. Again, I think Wake, the secondary's better, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. So I think the Dukes had a couple of picks last week. I know Vandy's had some takeaways as well. So, if all of those things are equal, maybe it's that running game that could tilt the scales this week. I don't know.
Stan, really appreciate your taking the time to do this. 30 years. Wow.
Not quite, almost, but it's a while. They haven't kicked me out yet, so I'll hang around some more.
Hey, it was good to have you on. Appreciate you doing this.
You bet, George. Thank you, guys.
Stan Cotten is the play-by-play voice of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons.